Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empower podcast. This is episode 46 with Ian Alerion. Hi, Ian.
Hey, how you doing, Brett?
Hey, better than I deserve. Thanks for coming out here. Can you give some people a little bit of a background as to where you come from in the community?
Absolutely. I am a co-host of the All Things Music podcast presented by Liquid Sound Records. I am a practicing professional cybersecurity expert. And I am also a at-home musician of sorts, if you will. And that's the short TLDR of myself.
I love it. All right, everyone, and if this is your first episode of Empower, what is Empower? It's a podcast run and founded by healthcare professionals and community healers with goals such as establishing and achieving the ability to continue raising transparency and awareness not alone, but together as a community, with goals such as having legislation passed in the state of Colorado and throughout the whole United States, mandating employers to provide and support employee wellness programs through a three-part system. First, a minimum of 8 wellness days per quarter for all healthcare professionals. Second, the uploading of funds onto an HSA account that is tax exempt at the federal, state, and local levels per quarter. Then third is the establishment of a third-party run anti-retaliation department in each healthcare system. At Empower, we believe in the power of community, diversity, and inclusivity. And we strive to continue to have those conversations with voices that often go unheard, featuring interviews with individuals and organizations who are making a real difference in their community and beyond. And if you know any people that would be a great guest, please go ahead and make outreach to us on our Empower email. And also at this time, if you can, follow, like, subscribe, and share this out. This is episode 46 with Ian Alerion. All right, Ian, we were going to go ahead and kick off here if we can, like we normally do, with the community thank you. Is there any individuals, organisms, or organizations that you would like to make an extension of thanks and gratefulness to at this time?
Organizations wide, I would just, City of Youngstown, Akron City, Cleveland City, and stuff that they allow us to do, operate the way that we do, and, give thanks to AEG and Live Nation for putting up with us, for putting up with me for all the years that I've been doing stuff with them. DWP. Anyone represents. Big shout out there.
Wow. And that's these are all mainly affiliates that you know in the music industry or the sound industry?
Yeah, a little bit of all of the above, right? Because we have to be, in touch with our communities to be able to do the things that we do, in the musical world and, in any world, so they provide us with venues and, accommodations, and then, DWP, Live Nation, AG are obviously production companies that have allowed us. When I say us, I mean my other co-host, Ryan Katz.
Mm-hmm.
And so, shout out Ryan Katz. But they allow us to do the things that we do, and have, provided us with more than we could ask for, community-wise.
Wow.
So
I've yet to have anybody make extensions out to cities. So I want to go ahead and say to myself, I have to pick a part in that show where I say, Brett, does this guest make you feel empowered? And yeah, Ian Alerion, you definitely make me feel empowered to thank the cities, because there are those people that do. Because the city is, like you said, it is community and a consensus of people. It's not done by just one. So, wow, thank you for that.
Yes, sir. And to quickly interject that, I would say that, the city isn't just, I'm not talking just government officials, it's the people that make up the community itself. And I think that's the most important thing to know. It's the people that make up that community. And people, you say something about the city and they're like, oh, the government officials.
No, you're right. Like if you ask somebody to picture a donut in their head, the first one they probably see is the one from The Simpsons. So I hear you're saying is the automatic mechanic, I think is, yes. So the automatic mechanic of the city it is people, but it is not just, you're right, just not the government entities too. So they're the people who also put the flames underneath the government officials' bottoms as well, I think. So, yeah, and if people, that's a very valid point too, is to see that and to not forget that, is that anybody who does look, I think, to the governments or whatnot, and they don't like X, Y, Z, whoever they are, or however they identify, which I get, it's, we're the people who put them there. We allow it. We're the ones that do it. So you can go ahead and point fingers in one way, but you're right. Yeah, it is the people that have done that. So lest we forget to look in the mirror,
Right.
Wow. And to speak good things to yourself if you're looking in there too. While you're still looking at yourself in the mirror, go ahead and do that too, and then get on with your day. All right. Anyways, so moving to the next part here, Ian, if we can, didn't know what the integrity of healthcare looked like for you or your community or just in general.
So, where I'm at, I would, integrity is a big word in my field, musically wise, because, it's important to uphold your integrity and follow through with things and the projects that you're doing. Cybersecurity wise, because, ethical standards, reflect directly upon integrity, so to speak. But, when that translates to healthcare related things, especially in my area, I feel like it's lacking. My area, the hospitals and healthcare that we have specifically doesn't seem to be ethically sound, or, you just hear lots of nightmare stories and stuff. And there's, a lot of people without healthcare, without those resources, and they just go without every day. So my overall opinion and, general stance on that topic is that there is definitely room for improvement in my general area, which is northeastern Ohio, which is ironic because we have Cleveland Clinic, but, which is arguably, one of the better, what would you call that? Like, healthcare.
So if I can offer this in a non-biased way, their specialty, what they are really well known for throughout the whole wide world, and you can look this up as public record. Even Robin Williams went there, was for their heart specialty. I believe they're also expanding more into the HEMOC and cancer area. I believe with neuro too. If you're in Northeast Ohio, please look into Metro Health. Again, I am in no way, shape, or form sponsored by any of these health organizations. I've just heard that even because my first spot, if I can share this too, one of my first nursing jobs was at the Cleveland Clinic in their emergency room as a resident. And what's interesting was my preceptor. That was a whole other experience. I'd love to talk about that sometime, but.
Sure.
Her father was an ER doctor there, and he had fallen off a ladder, and he did not go to the Cleveland Clinic. She told me this. He went to Metro because because their specialty is neuro. The clinic, but if somebody were to have an issue with a cardiac issue at Metro, like a heart issue, they'll probably want to go to the clinic. See what I'm saying? Like it's who has. It's just interesting to see that because that's just where in Ohio. This is a game everywhere else too, as to who has what specialty. Yeah.
Yeah, and cities like Youngstown, for example, are notoriously bad. They're just, I don't think they obviously specialize in anything. Number one. Number two is just you hear, and I've personally, had family experiences there. In Youngstown hospitals that just don't end up well. It seems there's a lot of incompetent people. I don't know if that's the word I would like to use, but that's the word that comes to mind.
Can I ask something, Ian? Can you share what happened? Because it seems there is something that happened. If you want to share, if you don't, we can move forward.
I'm not a healthcare expert, so I apologize if I use the wrong.
Nothing wrong, and everybody keeps saying that I talk to too, so it's okay. Just share.
There are, nurses there that they don't know how to do PICC lines properly. It seems like there's people that have issues with that, and then there was one instance where I'm not even 100% sure what happened because it's it's my significant other side of her family that this happened to.
Okay.
But they did some type of surgery, and on this woman in her family, and her upper chest kind of, did some surgery on her upper chest, and it somehow exploded or imploded or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this was at St. Eve's. So she had all these problems for a month and they couldn't fix it. St. Eve's did the damage. So then she had to go up to Cleveland Clinic, basically to have this issue remedied. But, it's kind of disturbing that, when you go to professionals in your own city that they can't, and they say they can do something and it just ends up being messed up in the long run, that you have to go somewhere else an hour and a half, almost 2 hours away to have that situation remedied. To me, and they were never transparent about it either. They never really even owned up to the mess up. They never took responsibility, which, again, I'm not a healthcare expert, but I am in cybersecurity. When things go south, you have an ethical responsibility there. It seems that they don't value those same ethical responsibilities, that we do in other fields.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, just specifically speaking the Youngstown area. I'm not talking about Cleveland Clinic or even Akron or anything like that.
Yep,
just
nothing wrong here.
Youngstown. So I know that wasn't very detailed.
No, I guess for me, if I could get a little bit more specific, it sounded like their actual care while this individual was there versus like discharge education, getting them out of there. It was more while they were there. Okay. I guess in this, from what it is you shared, I'm going to go ahead and look at it if I can. Did it seem as if this person, first of all, had a willingness to ask for help? If they seemed as if they didn't know in that situation. If you don't know, it's okay. But if that person had the opportunity to ask for help and they were struggling there in front of a family member, if that's what it sounded like it may have been, then that's really on them, especially if they have the same certification as their potential helper, if that was their preceptor or orientee. But wow. Yeah, if you see something, say something. That's it. Anything even for us as healthcare professionals. And it's easier said than done, though. It's easier said than done. Yeah.
Which is a problem. I mean, if you have no accountability, how do you remedy any situation? Because no one's going to speak up. And no one speaks up, or then nothing's ever going to get fixed. And that seems to be part of the issue. I mean, I don't work there. I know very little, but I've heard enough to know, kind of have somewhat of an idea of what the potential problem could be. Because it's obvious. Sometimes it just is, enough information to kind of create a assumption of what's going on.
Yeah, or is it more of a feeling in which you've made a decision for yourself, if I can offer that? So if you were to potentially need to have medical help, you would not go to this healthcare system. That's the decision that you've literally made. Right. Okay. No, totally get it. Nothing wrong here. Yeah. And that's the patient experience. And I think that's what's most vital. And this is also something that you've heard from the dialogue of somebody else's patient experience. And then from that data that you've drawn, you've made your own. And that's fine. And that's what people can do. You should be able to go out there and look up if for those who are listening too, if you haven't checked out the bio link for Empowera, there's a link there for Medicare.gov. You can go ahead and look up their ratings as well. There's phone numbers for facilities that you can look up in your meantime when you're not a patient, when you're not having an emergency or any of that. So you can look it up for your loved ones or any of that. Their inspections are public as well. So you can make those decisions based upon your own zip code too. But it's interesting to see that this was on PIC too, because PICs are wow, just PICs. I'll just throw that in there. A PIC neglected, they say, is a PIC infected. There's a lot of different things with PICs. And for those who are younger than 18 who are listening, if they are, PIC is just a straw that goes in to your heart. A straw that goes in there, so nutrients and drugs that are needed to help people get better are there. So it's nice to keep those clean because it's going inside of you, which is a clean area, very clean area, which is what we call sterile. And different than just clean and washing your hands. That one you want to make sure there's nothing really there. Yeah, wow. Mm-hmm. Not to mention dressing changes you're supposed to do, depending on your own policy, is every 72 hours. But okay, so we've looked at the integrity of healthcare for you. What, in your opinion, do you believe is happening in healthcare?
Overall, you know, on a like federal level, would you say?
Anything.
So I wrote a little something here, but, you know, to kind of gather my thoughts and, you know, my overall opinion, you know, as a consumer, not a practitioner or anything, you know, I would just say, and something that I've noticed is that, you know, I feel like healthcare can be unreachable for many people, in the way that it's unaffordable, or they don't even have health insurance, or, you know, anything like that. And I even made a note here that I would like to even maybe see, I'm sure that some university or someone's done statistics on that, you know, the ratio of people that do or don't have it. But personally, I find it to be disturbing, and, you know, that our healthcare providers and government can do a better job at remediating that situation to bring more affordable or even free healthcare to the masses, you know, and especially the youth. I think that's, you know, our future generations are obviously the most critical thing that we have going on, you know, in general. But it just seems like, you know, there's a lack of things going on there that should be going on a federal level, whether the government steps in or healthcare providers. I doubt they'll ever step in because they're in it for the money, probably. But you know, it's become one of those situations, and we let it run rampant, you know, and it probably shouldn't be. What's your opinion? I'm curious. As an actual.
Yeah, sure. Nothing wrong here. I think a lot of it is a bunch of conversations to be had, and I think it's not the structure or the plan. I think if we built, I'm reading a good book right now. Where's it at? I think I left it out there. It's called Burnout, and in it, it was just the preface, and it was written by a doctor. I think it's Nagasaki, I believe, if I said it correctly. I tagged her a few days ago. But in it, she said, if we wanted to build an inefficient system, we've done a damn good job. and in it, I was like, okay, well, with that declaration, I was like, wow. And it's not just that. I think it's not just availability. And I think the thing you were talking about earlier, which I think is very important to talk about when it comes to access, is that based upon socioeconomic status. Because we have this classification where and I didn't hear this in school, that there are in certain neighborhoods, there are a bunch of Dollar Generals, there are a bunch of McDonald's, and they're on food stamps. And is that literally a community being set up for success in the nutrition realm? That's just one part of health. And I'd say no, absolutely not.
Right.
And
You're
I think
absolutely right.
But I think the other thing too is, who's the one teaching these patients when they're being discharged too? The people who have somewhat of a limited knowledge. Most doctors and nurses, I've found out, I'm just talking about nutrition right now, but they only have about one or two classes. I only had one. And what's interesting is to see that integration overall, because then people will draw, and they are. I think that the general public is looking more at their food now, and they want to talk about that, and that's one of them. But I think conversation is one thing, because even throughout all of history, Ian, it has been a conversation, and it's, well, just tell them this, or tell her that, and then it'll be X, Y, and Z. But it was to be able to tell them that, and whoever they are, they've made it very difficult to have said conversation. Or conversations. But with that, I think at the same time too, the noise is getting louder, if I have to put it in some way, and it has been getting louder and louder. And since COVID, I think a lot more people, they want to be and they want to live a longer life. They see, and not to say that there isn't suicide ideation and mental health and wellness out there, but more and more people are at least turned on to wanting to learn, to wanting to see the difference that can be made, and to seeing that the system that's currently out there has not totally set them up for success. And they say, I want change. I want to be able to, have my own ship with its own voyage. I get the voyage of certain countries or X, Y, and Z is their own agenda, and I don't agree with it. Some people are just leaving the United States or leaving their other countries right now within our age cohort, and it can be because of healthcare. And I'm getting off topic, but it's all tied together. The conversation of money, the conversation of health, the conversation of nutrition, they are all conversations to be had. And I think what's really awesome is community members who want to be able to talk about it. And I think if you're one of them, bring others, tell others, and don't let it. And this is the biggest challenge I'm running into. Ian, if I can offer this, and for those who are listening, if you feel that you could not be a guest on Empower because you're not a healthcare professional, I have to offer this to you. I get it. I'm just going to start there. I totally get it because I've run up against many people who have been there. And the thing I want to offer, if I can, with that is you wouldn't, from what I've gotten so far from this experience and being able to create it, and it's still even before Empower, some of the greatest conversations and impacts I've ever had, and I think the world would even be able to have, are not from the people who have degrees, are not from the people who have acronyms after their name. And for some reason, the more we add on to the end, I don't know, and this is just me, the more mechanical, the more machinistic the human becomes. And don't get me wrong, are there still those resilient human beings that for some reason are still able to do it all? Yes. And I think one of the key is love. And the interesting thing is that's a whole nother conversation and frequency, I think, to perform any act or any work, whether in cybersecurity, as an uncle, as an aunt, as a healthcare professional, anybody. And I think if you have an opinion on your own sense of being, then you'd be an exceptional guest for Empower Up, because I think our health is based upon our being, I feel.
Sure.
And our being on our health.
Yeah, and I think you make to wind it back, I think you make a great point about nutrition specifically is, I would say our government federally and locally have let, these organizations like Dollar General and Walmart
and I'm not downing them. They probably have a great path as a business. I'm just saying this is what I learned through research in school. That's all I'm sharing. So please keep going. Please keep going.
Yeah. Because and here's a personal example. In my household, we try to eat healthy, and we even have this, it's like a bodega corner store type thing where, they've got really healthy, all vegan food, but it's astronomically expensive, and it's the only one in our area. And another critical thing, and this might be worth mentioning too, is places like that, they don't accept things like EBT, which, many families rely upon. So these families are forced to kind of do their grocery shopping at places like Walmart or Dollar General, whatever, to kind of keep them in that system. So there's no way to get out of it, even, and at a very basic level, when you want to try to, pun intended, but empower your brain or something, you start with nutrition. I mean, you think much clearer when you're eating healthier. You're able to make much more coherent decisions.
Well, can I offer this too? Can I offer this too? There is the eating too, and then there's the absence of eating, which is becoming more into our culture now. We're learning kind of about fasting, intermittent fasting, and the benefit of that. So there is this balance too. But hold on, let's rewind back. Back in high school, you're only taught to eat nutrition in health class. They didn't teach you about fasting. They didn't teach us. This is all new stuff. And it's okay to be weirded out and scared and to want to know and have awe and wonder. If I can offer that, that's the one thing I think most humans lack. And if you don't have it, find something to wonder about. So find something to be in awe about. Because if you've lost that, then my gosh, I think that's what got you where it is you are. Where else was wonder and awe something that you were like, I'd love to get into that. Wow. Like awe and wonder.
Right. Well, even on that, because I've been blessed to be able to interview, many musicians that are touring and stuff. And, even their nutrition when they're traveling, their only options are to eat at gas stations and, all that. So,
oh, really? Yeah.
So a lot of them do practice fasting to kind of offset, eating like that.
Really?
And, I've interviewed a lot of artists that come across, from, the United Kingdom or Europe or whatever. And, they come to the United States and, I've had this conversation specifically with a band called 1056.
Mm-hmm.
And they're from the United Kingdom. And they came here on their first American tour. And, they've heard stories about how bad we are over here with the food stuff. And then they got here and realized that it's true. But they also had said that some of it is addicting. because they put, these supplements or, a lot of salt or something in their food, and that we do here in the United States. And they said when they went back to, the United Kingdom, that they were kind of craving American food. Not that it was because it was healthy or anything, but because they kind of got addicted to it while they were here.
Yeah.
And they put on a lot of weight while they were here too, which was interesting because they don't eat like that across seas. In a lot of those countries, they have banned, the things that we eat here every day, like Red 40, Lake 60 or whatever it is, and all that. It does not exist in these other countries as it does here. And it starts with that. And then we feed our kids that. And, and we don't have critical access to proper nutrients like how we should in this country.
Wow.
It's a major issue.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And it goes deep, and a lot of it is money based. Like I even said with the EBT stuff, you can't tell me a family can go to one of these, small niche, vegan grocery stores and be able to afford anything in there.
Yeah.
They can't.
Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where I think people even want to just grow their own, and it's grow their own of many different things. Like,
well, yeah. And, there's, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe there's even regulations on that, city regulations of how big your garden can be or whatever in certain cities, which is stupid.
Yeah, I know. It's like, are you set up for success even when you have the idea? Like,
but it's because they're making money. And that's the problem. It's taking money away from these big box stores.
Well, now hold on. Now what I found is, if I could offer this, we've encountered an upset. So now what we can have is a breakthrough. So then the thing is there's the people who do look at the legislation, and either they'll go knocking on City Hall's door, or they don't. Or you can share one. I mean, even in Europe, speaking of it in Europe too, there are countries where people share their backyards and they share their gardens, and literally people can just waltz through, take what it is you need, and it makes sense. And it'd be interesting to see that as a recreation, I think. And I still,
There's actually a couple plots of, I don't know if they're plots of land or if it's even being done legally. So, but there are certain places in Youngstown where people have come together, a community effort to create, a garden and a big plot of land where I'm not exactly sure how that works or even if it's 100% legal, but it's neat to see communities come together and do that.
Even if it's starting in its infancy. Yeah, it caught your eye though, right?
Yeah, well, it's abnormal here, and in our country to even see that in general, but it's not abnormal in other countries. And that's kind of the conversation that I was having with that band 1056 was something they had brought up. In other countries, it's normal to do that. It's not normal to do that here. So when you do see it here, it's kind of like, whoa, that's interesting. It's kind of neat, community can bond together and do that, especially in an area like Youngstown where it's, a little bit rougher. So I do like to see that.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I remember sitting in my developmental psychology class back in college, and the teacher even talked about Youngstown because that's where she was from. So I can't speak to it, but she even said in some parts of Youngstown, this is any parts of the world too, folks, but this is what she had said was you don't stop at a red light, you just keep going. Like, not to condone any laws or any breaking of any laws here, just so everybody knows, it's just what the teacher said.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of have to do it, or you'll be buried 6 feet under the ground somewhere if you're lucky.
Yes, no. Be safe. Don't go out alone. Don't go out late at night. Just know that, everybody. But yes. Oh, my goodness. I dig it. See, I saw one in Youngstown. I think the last time in Ohio I saw a community garden was, I think I was like 5. It was 5 or 6. I think my mother went and found one. It was not too far from where I grew up. But yeah, I know. It was probably like not even 10, 15 minutes. So it was interesting to see that. But I think when you do see that in today's world too, is when you see those in today's world, if I can get over my tongue, it's interesting. Like you said, it is almost foreign, or it's like, wow, this person's large and in charge. Like, or this person ain't going to the store in a few months. Like they're ready to go, and they're prepped. And it's amazing how I've noticed even 2 people who have those gardens is there's a surplus. There's no surpluses in other parts of the world, but for some reason in those gardens, people have surplus and they give out their stuff. And then I guess I wanted to see if we could bring up with you, Ian, the power of music and the integration of music into personal health and wellness, or just in general, what that may look like for others and what it is you'd like to share on that.
Sure.
Go right ahead.
So, music for me has been a journey, number one. Brett and I, for those who don't know, played together in drumline.
Oh, yeah.
Long ago.
Back in high school.
With our drum instructor, Ryan Louie. And,
Ryan.
Band instructor, who was not too fond of me. So I actually quit band to go on a personal journey, my senior year, to play drums in a local metal band with a couple of my friends. Some of which are no longer with us, and some are on the other side of the country, and some are right here still in Ohio, and I miss them all occasionally. But that was kind of an outlet, especially in my high school years, for my mental health. I think now looking back upon it, kind of led me down this rabbit hole of, now doing what I do now, which is a lot of DJing, music production, and even kind of being I don't know if I'd use the word influencer, but a documenter of musical things, via the podcast and doing media.
I'd call you a journalist.
A journalist.
Yes. And an enthusiast and an advocate.
Professional. Yeah, advocate. Media professional, for multiple big industries. It's been kind of an outlet for my personal mental health. So I guess what I want to say for people out there that's thinking about tapping into their creative side, the first best day to do that was 10 years ago. The second best day is today. I was lucky to start it 10 years ago. I'm still going today. But I know a lot of people that have been thinking about getting into it, and that's what I tell them. And I just want to add too that I'm in school. I've been in school for a while. I actually have one more semester to go before I graduate.
Woo!
And, there is the notion that a lot of people rely solely on their creative side. And, I think it's important to use it more as an outlet for, your mental health or, an outlet of your true self, but also be focused on your professional side of things too, because that's also critically important to grow. So there's a lot to be said there too, but I'll keep that kind of, base level. But yeah, I feel like I'm ranting on, but
you're not. Nothing wrong here. No, I think if I can, for me, what I got from that is the integration of music, I think, into your being made you who it is you are today. And if your best piece of advice from what I got was, if you're looking to do something, just start. Find a way to do it. Be unreasonable. Write it down. Even any of it. And people hear this all because we're approaching the new year and whatnot. No, but honestly, I think it could be at any time of the year in general. You'd be surprised what could be your biggest inspiration, I think, or what has been, and maybe you haven't turned the knob up back, or you're re-examining it now. So and it could be just a song. It could be what is it? And Tesla says this, one quote: "If you want to understand the laws of the universe, think in terms of sound, frequency, and vibration." And I think out of all of that, you mentioned creativity and thinking that, some people, they think they don't even have it at all too. If I can offer this too, Ian, on one of the last podcasts too, I had mentioned, and it's true, I want to bring it back up because I went in, because I was on assignment in Oregon, and I went into a dispensary following the law and state and local ordinances in Oregon. And before I went over there, the actual bud tender had told me, I had said, hey, I was doing some research into creativity. I didn't know if there was a potential strain here that would be better for that. And he stopped me and he said, you know what? And he was younger than me too, probably about 18, 19. And he was like, creativity is an entity. And I was
Yes.
like, what? And he was like, and you can be oversummoned, and there are consequences to oversummoning it. And he said, and there's not a strain here for that. He's like, it's an entity. And it's amazing to see is, if I can offer this too, is that distinction in music and production, and what it is if you are creating a project, know that there is, hold on one second, folks. There is the play monkey play. I always put it in there is, and we see that with the people who do have that creativity that is turned on, and they reach this point where they do have a project or a song or a movie or whatever it is, and they can get burned out from it, and it's the play monkey play. So I'm glad you've integrated this, that your grounding factor has still been music in regards to that, I think, and to share that with folks, if I can offer it too, is with creativity is it's there. You just literally, I'm not here for witchcraft or any of that, but you literally have to summon it, and just to look into it being there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I just, I want to say, what I was saying about the school stuff, going to Kent State, I've learned a lot from going to Kent State, and one of those things is not to put all your eggs in one basket. There are so many major artists out there that kind of diversify their portfolio, because, being creative, especially in the music world, can be an outlet, but it can also be a pitfall. So it's a dangerous concept. And I've been there on that end, thinking I'm going to be this massive touring DJ all over the world. And, I might even still be down the road. Who knows? I don't know. But it's a journey, and that's the point, is you can't put all your eggs in one basket, because it can have the opposite effect and a negative effect instead of a positive one. So just try to diversify, for those who are listening, diversify your portfolio into different things. Try new things. It doesn't have to be music. It can be film. I even dabble in film myself now. I don't play singularly one instrument. I play the guitar. I play the piano. I play the drums. I do a little bit of vocals even here and there. I hate my voice, but it's kind of, it's a journey, and, I have so many people that sit here and ask me or watch me, in the studio, and they're like, how do you do that? How do you do that? I'm like, I honestly have no idea how the hell I do that. It just kind of, it's an experiment. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's trying.
But hold on. But you said this too. It was a journey that you started not today, but 10 years ago, or even prior to that.
Yeah. It's a culmination of that effort. But, there have been times where I've been in the studio with someone who's never touched music a day in their life, production, but they have ideas in their head. They just can't translate it. So I take their ideas from their head and translate it into something. It was something I never even thought of before, so it's just kind of taking those ideas in your head and honing your experience in, which does take time to make that translation happen, from your head to your fingers. Mm-hmm. But it's the journey, and you got to take enjoyment from it, but don't become so invested in it that it becomes every part of your livelihood necessarily, because it could come crumbling down, especially when you start to play, shows and put yourself out there, because not everybody's going to have the same view on your material that you do.
Yeah. What is it? There's a distinction between passion and obsession. You can be obsessed with your own material, but it's beyond the passion that maybe people see in that, or see in you anymore too. Yeah. Wow.
So it's just being aware of all those things. And that's what makes mental health, especially, for creative people, so tricky, because you can become so invested in your material that you almost lose yourself at times. And, that's why I think it's important to have things to fall back upon, and to kind of, like I said, diversify your portfolio. I mean, Corey Taylor from Slipknot, for example, has multiple projects and multiple different businesses and things that he's invested in. He's not just invested in Slipknot. He's invested in all these other things and these businesses, and kind of has spread his stuff, because you just, you become so headstrong. This is something he's talked about in the past, is you become so headstrong in one thing that it actually has a negative effect. It's no longer fun. It's no longer positive. It's no longer has a positive impact on your mental health state. So you got to kind of take a step back, reassess the things that you have got going on and diversify those things. And I think that gets lost somewhere. The ability to do that gets lost somewhere in the translation of, it's easy to do for creative people. It just gets lost.
If I can offer this, if I can offer, from what I'm getting, what it is you're saying, it's divergent versus convergent mindsets. So like you could diverge, right? With the exception of portfolio, taking that out. But yeah, your thought process, I think, as a creative, right, you can converge and diverge, and it could be going on simultaneously, left and right. But it's to still, I think, have, because we live life in measure, right? No matter if we're creative or not, if we have beginnings, middles, and ends. And I'm finding out, too, with creative people, and I'm growing up with them, we don't like the end part. Creatives don't like the end. They don't like the end product. And it's interesting, though, is the most critical person, I think, at the end is the creator versus those who are enjoying whatever was created.
Yeah, and you said it a lot better than I even did, and put it into better words, which is great. But it doesn't just apply to creative people. This could apply to doctors or, anybody. Just, if you have one unsuccessful operation, you kind of, pick yourself back up and learn from your mistakes and continue on. And, it's not the end of the world, basically. I mean, shit's gonna get fucked up. Let's be real. Maybe that'll even be my quote.
Yeah.
but you gotta bounce back, man. You can't. It's not the end of the world. I mean, people have lost a billion. They went from being millionaires or billionaires to having nothing and built themselves back up. And it's kind of chasing that dream, and it keeps us alive. But, it's important to keep that in the back of your mind is, don't let everything ride on one thing, and pick up an instrument.
Absolutely. Yes. And it could even, and it'd be, if I can offer this, I think if people think I don't want to, I can't, it's amazing. If they've picked up their voice and sang in the shower or in the car, they already have.
You already are doing something. And it's sometimes that simple.
Yeah.
It sometimes really is that simple.
And the relief.
You don't need a $3,000 guitar, American-made guitar. You don't need a $3,000. Well, just yesterday, actually, DW came out with a $10,000 drum set. You don't need these things. You don't need these things. You don't need to go to the best recording studio in LA. Billie Eilish is a great example of that. Her brother, was it Finn or Fern or something like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, they made one of the most best-selling albums of all time right in their parents' house in their bedroom. From just basic things. I mean, they had nice equipment because their parents were musicians, I guess, but they didn't go to any fancy studio or even use fancy soundproofing or anything. They just set out to do something. They did it, and it turned out to be successful.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So,
and they got started.
Fancy things.
And they got started. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Work with what you got and take value in what you have.
I mean, there's even the famous, we spoke of drums earlier. I'd love to bring that back. There's even the famous people who just get drumsticks and the $5 bucket from Home Depot. Yeah, I know.
And they play in New York. They play downtown New York or something. And they post their videos on Instagram. There's so many different ways to do things and so many new methods to try that if you fail at a certain method, that's not the end all. There's hundreds of thousands of other things. There's no defined road to success.
You're right. And I feel like if there's more tools in the toolbox that people can use if they have a computer or access to a computer. And if you don't have a computer, go to your local library. You'd be surprised. And if they make it a hassle to get onto the computer, tell them it's a hassle. Then write to your legislator, because that's baloney. That's access to knowledge and information. I mean, I'll never forget, even after high school, before it was more middle school and before, I would walk down to the library and get on and go onto the computer and research and see stuff. And it was free, and I was able to print stuff out. And that's the way I think it could easily be. And you'd be surprised. That person later who was going to the computer, then I turned into being and using some kind of a DJ software back in high school and in middle school too. So it adds up, and the integration of someone who gave a computer to their loved one back in the 90s or the 80s, the payoff on the return on investment. And it's amazing to see that. But wow, and they did the one in the bedroom. I have to remember that now. The whole album was done there. And you'd think, because you see some of the, I guess for me, musical history where some of the greatest albums were made or some of the greatest songs were made, and it was like, I'll throw this one out as there's a spot called Headley Grange, and Led Zeppelin had their song When the Levee Breaks, and it's famous. They always talk about how they got the famous intro drum track of John Bonham, their drummer, and how they set up the microphones at the top of the staircase, and they like this real intricate design and X, Y, and Z. But like you're sharing, it's not always that way. It's not always that intricate. Those are people who've.
No, it's not. And, some of the best records were made with some of the most minimal equipment and unorthodox ways. I was just watching this little documentary thing. It's not really a documentary, I guess, but it was just like an 8-minute video on YouTube about Nirvana and their Unplugged album. They have argumentatively one of the best albums, made one of the best albums of all time. And I'll probably die on that hill, because I do truly believe that, and many others do too. But, Kurt Cobain didn't think it went that well. Mm-hmm. And, he had that, he wanted his manager to buy him this Lead Belly's $500,000 guitar. Mm-hmm. And
for those who don't know, Lead Belly, very famous blues guitarist, very famous.
Yes, and they were covering a couple of their songs, for those who don't know that either. That's why he wanted it. He was really, kind of obsessed with them in a way. And, it turns out that Kurt Cobain's guitars sold for, I can't remember the exact number. In fact, I'm about to look it up.
Yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Kurt Cobain guitar.
The one he wanted was $500,000.
How much?
You said the one that he wanted for Lead Bellies was $500,000.
$500,000, yeah. And Kurt Cobain's guitar price was it sold for more than $1.5 million. Which is a testament to that album, and just kind of ironic because he had bought that guitar that sold for $1.5 million at a pawn shop, and it was beat up. It had the wrong pickups in it and everything, and this goes to show that he made it work. So could anyone else. And Kurt wasn't a great guitar player or anything. He actually played a lot of the wrong notes, and especially in that album. That performance played a lot of the wrong notes, but it kind of contributed to, that, the aesthetic of that album. Mm-hmm. So there is no right or wrong or industry standard answer for anything necessarily. It's, what you make of it, an extension of your creative self, and that was what we've seen with Kurt Cobain. Mm-hmm.
If I can offer this, the way I put it through language is how you treat the blank canvas, right? And the way that you bring about whatever it is, and that if you see each day or each project can be a blank canvas, and you don't need a whole lot. Many of the greatest artists too, they didn't have some of the best tools whatsoever, and that's kind of the thing you were speaking of with Kurt. But it's a story that remains the same through history, through art, through math, through science, through all of them. They all made do with whatever it was in whatever situation, and that adaptability, and to see that and to be able to say no. I think that's another big one, is being able to tell people no and have a comfortability with the word no. Because I think in today's society, people more and more are they're saying no, but they have their rationale behind it instead of just saying no like a toddler would. Like some people just incessantly just want the automatic mechanic no. But I feel like more and more, at least in the United States and throughout the world now, we have rationales. We have the ability to look at not just mainly what is on regular media like CNN, Fox News, all of them, but also those of our peers that are on YouTube, that are on Spotify, that are on there, because that's where I feel like our generations is going to for their news, because they feel as if they're being lied to or they're not hearing the whole story, and it seems as if those who are not having all of, and it's amazing, it's the story once again, Ian, those who don't have all the tools once again are still the ones that are getting the message out, I think. And it's interesting to see that. Wow. I dug it. I dig it.
The thoughts in my brain.
Yeah, no. Either way, get started, and you'd be surprised how much you can do with little. Yes. Because I think the other thing too is, and it's an incessant need for us as humans, is to look for our answers and whatever it is we want out in the external world, when we can really see that some of the greatest answers, I think, are within. And to see that, and it's been historical. They've said it since the ancient Egyptians. I mean, it's amazing how many people want to look for the answers outside and to neglect that potentially they have it inside of them, whatever it may be, whether it's the vigor to start a project or to even, and the other one too is, if I can offer this too, and I don't know if you could speak to it, is the comfortability with, I don't want to say failure, but some people would say failure, to only see what your other successes would be. And to see that not everything will work out, and a comfortability with that, because that's still adaptability too, I think. And it's the risk of the journey too, is that things will go wrong. And yeah,
it's perspective.
Beautiful.
And sometimes it takes the right tool to bring that out within yourself. For some people, that's instruments. Some people it's picking up a camera, creating a film. Some people. It's drawing, it could be anything. I mean, it can even be the goofiest thing you'd never even see yourself doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never, seen myself playing guitar or, playing pianos or picking up a camera, but here I am. And it's, argumentatively become a very important part of my daily self and routine, along with my professional life. Kind of keeps things in check. Because, myself, I'm sure, like with any other reasonable human being, if you dwell too far into your professional life, you can kind of lose yourself and, have a negative mental health impact because of that. Mm-hmm. So it's important to keep in touch with the things that keep us young and, somewhat stable, mm-hmm. and recognizing that and, staying in touch with those things. I feel like a lot of those things, especially as we get older, get lost in translation somewhere along the way, where we just dive so far into our professional lives that we kind of lose track of our younger selves, and life becomes somewhat monotonous, and as a result of that becomes meaningless to a lot of people.
So, yeah,
kind of my 2 cents, but
yeah, no, and I think that and to what meaning that you give your life, and the possibility of seeing that, I'm going to go back to it, is blank canvas, and seeing that each day. And I think we do. I think some people, they do have the monotonous, repetitive day. They go in and they do X, Y, and Z. But I think even generationally too, people who are in their 30s, and even younger, they want to be able to have a life. They don't want to just be a work hound that's just brought in, worked until you throughout the week. Then you have your 3 days off on your weekend to do whatever to do with whatever neurotransmitters in your brain, whether it's with a loved one or with a substance, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. I'm not going to speak to that. And then you come back and you do the same thing over again. And we're fed up with it, and we're not down with it anymore. And we want change, and we're growing, and we see that we are not just, which we are. You can still be good at a craft, and other people may see that as your craft and they may like it, but you still have your own personal life. You talked about photography too, and other areas to delve out to, and to see. This is the beautiful part, I think, is the impact of what those do back on the overall basis of what it is that you produce into the world. You know what I mean? If that is to step away from the primary, I guess, the primary area of employment, because you're still employed, I think, even if it is your something you enjoy, because that's even tax code too, is I feel. And then again, I'm not here to give any tax advice, federal advice, any of that, but from what I've found is, if the IRS is looking for somebody having a hobby versus a business, they're going to find it out. And if you're really into it for a business, you can still start it as a hobby, absolutely, and it can start that way. But if you honestly want to, in the end, it becomes a business, and hopefully it does, because it's integrated with your living and whatever it is. So, wow. And don't even let the money scare you. If it's something you really like, try it on. That's the best part. Is the very worst, you try it on and you take it off and you don't like it. It's cool. Put it back on the rack. So,
right.
But to try it on, that's a whole other discipline. And each time to try them on and to know, and you do, like you had talked about too, like anything, it's a discipline. You have to do it over and over again, and you will. You'll even to the point of coming into novel items, you'll know, hey, you know what, this is what I'll look for in a novel item. So, wow, I get it. I love it. This has been awesome. I love this. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's great to catch up with you after, all these years.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I was actually just telling my girlfriend too about yellow belly monsters. No one's gonna have any clue about this except for you and me. But and by the way, that CD went missing. I have to find that. I don't know if you have it or not. But
it's a song we made.
Yep. Absolutely.
I just think about that. Almost 14 years ago.
Yep.
It's probably actually my first recorded song. Maybe not one I'm the most proud of.
Hey, we were trying it on regardless. Yes.
There's something to be said for that, 14 years ago, we made something.
That's it.
And it's given us a, conversational topic today, 14 years later.
And that's one of the best parts of the existence is
it's kind of, it's worth noting,
Absolutely. I love it. All right. I didn't know, Ian, did you want to go ahead and bring us all back here with the empowering quotes to close, folks?
Sure. I just, for the people, I say, live as free as you can, man. There's no right or wrong answer to anything. You can just create your own path. And if things don't work out today, they might work out tomorrow via a different method. So you got to pick yourself back up and put yourself out there. I'm still working on that myself. So
as am I.
I would like to leave people with.
I love it. And Ian Alerion, if you haven't checked them out too, if you want to go ahead and you can go ahead and send over your information. I can drop it too in the doobly-doo or in the description too, so people go ahead and check you out on Spotify and what other platforms did you say you were on?
Yeah, so my podcast, All Things Music, presented by Liquid Sound Records. We're on Spotify, iTunes. We're doing 4K uploads with artists on YouTube now. I have Alerion Beats on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes as well. Pretty much every major platform.
And that's Alpha, Lima, Echo, Romeo, India, Oscar, November. Alerion, first name Ian. That's India, Alpha, November.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
I dig it.
Thank you,
everybody.
This has been great.
I dig it, Ian Alerion. Thank you again, everybody. This has been episode 46. And if you haven't, like, follow, subscribe, and share. We appreciate it. We hope you have a great new year coming up here into 2024. Bye for now.